work with Shinzo Abe and Xi Jinping, but will he have enough goodwill to come home successful? We're joined now by Anja Manuel, partner and co-founder at Rice Hadley Gates. Anja, great to have you with us. Thank you so much for coming in. The expectations for this trip are pretty low, so it seems it won't really take that much to surprise on the upside.
I think it's a very important trip for the president. He talked about trade. You'll hear some talk about that. But the key thing here is to keep Asian allies unified on North Korea. And by that, I mean particularly China. China holds most of the economic leverage over that country. 90% of the trade is there. We hold most of the military leverage. China isn't going to want to see missile defenses all over Asia. So that, I think, is the key to making this a successful trip, keeping China on side.
Yeah, I mean, it begins in Japan, so it would seem that there is, the potential to annoy people at the very start of this trip. How does the president avoid that?
I think the president, hopefully he won't tweet during the trip. I think it's positive that he's going to be there with his Secretary of State, Tillerson. It is a marathon of a trip. We're doing Japan, South Korea, China, Vietnam, the Philippines. And in each of those stops, he has an opportunity to tell our Asian allies that we're with them and that we're still going to be a Pacific power.
Reading South Korean newspapers, I continue to find these anti-Trump protests, the slogan, Trump equals war. How aligned is South Korea with Japan and the U.S., who have a harsher stance against North Korea?
Well, I just got back from Japan, and I heard there that their relationship with South Korea, while always strained, is better than ever on the North Korea issue. And in Seoul, of course, you have the opposition calling for nuclear arming of South Korea. I think that's quite unlikely, and of course, the president there has batted that down. So I think it's good that we're seeing some cooperation between South Korea and Japan on this issue.
Is there any possibility the president will visit the DMZ?
I've heard probably only what you have, which is that he won't visit at this time, and I think that's absolutely fine.
And what about the other side of things? I mean, what are the chances that the North Korean leader will, conduct a test or do something antagonistic while the president is in the region?
Boy, Kim Jong-un is quite unpredictable, and you could imagine him testing a missile just when there's a big meeting of the U.S. and China, or of the U.S. and with President Abe. I just hope that we react in an understated way when that happens.
Now, President Trump's political standing right now is pretty fragile at home. How will he measure up against President Xi Jinping, who's just recently been more empowered by the end of the Party Congress in China?
As you said, President Xi is riding a positive wave coming out of this 19th Party Congress. He has been able to put many of his allies on the standing committee. He is moving forward with his initiatives, part of which mean to make China more powerful on the world stage. And it's all the more important that while there are big issues, real issues between the U.S. and China, in particular on trade, that we find a way to cooperate in those areas where we can.
Any breakthroughs and any kind of alliances against North Korea anticipated, Anja?
I don't see it, but I'm no longer privy to what's going on inside the State Department. This is a very difficult issue. 3 presidents before this one have dealt with a North Korea that is belligerent and trying to nuclearize, and I think it's going to take a long time to sort this one out.
But I think we have not seen so much conflicting messages coming from a single White House ever. We are now continuing to see President Trump undermine Rex Tillerson's efforts on negotiations with North Korea. Who are Asian leaders right now paying attention to?
Well, when I was in Japan, I actually thought it was really positive that the Japanese said, we understand that President Trump has his political constituency at home, but we know that we are currently on a path of diplomacy and trying to resolve this. No one thinks a military solution is a very good one. Of course, the U.S. administration has to say that's an option we always keep on the table, but as best as I can tell, everyone, and that includes the United States, is trying its best to work this out diplomatically.
And working out things diplomatically, how are relations between the U.S. and South Korea? Because we know that there have been tensions between President Trump accusing President Moon Jae-in of appeasement against North Korea.
There have been some tensions, and you had Mike Froman on earlier. I agree with him that this is not the time to throw the free trade agreement with South Korea into doubt. We need them on side for this. I've actually been positively surprised, however, at how well the new South Korean leader is working with the U.S. to deal with this threat. So I think behind the scenes, you're seeing some very good cooperation, especially on the military side.
Why shouldn't South Korea lean towards a stronger partnership with China, given that the U.S. seems to be retreating from the region and these conflicting messages coming from the White House?
Yeah, you're asking all the tough questions. You know, Asia is a series of bad bilateral relationships. The South Koreans and the Japanese have a difficult history. The Japanese with the Chinese with the South Koreans. I think right now you're seeing a region that is quite worried about North Korea and is trying its best to muddle through and to make sure that their own conflicts don't get in the way of resolving this #1 priority.
Anja, thank you so much for joining us. Anja Manuel, partner and co-founder at Rice Hadley Gates from San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you.